Welcome back all, this is Daz from Model Techniques. So up this week I'm going to do a little bit of a series coming up and getting away from the electronics with my new filament 3D printer. So I'm looking at doing some designing how I'm going to run my operations with on my layout. I've got a little bit of an idea using car cards and barcoded switch lists. I'll put in a description below how I do that. But in short, obviously, have you ever run a layout that the track setup is quite complicated and you don't really know what track is what? So what I've come up with to help my operators and help me between operating sessions to just have a very, very quick ready reckoner that you can visually see what track is what. So I've made up some little 3D printed tags with the names on it and the direction of the track to help my operators in the operations sense. So, and also don't forget to, if you wish to support the channel, either reach out to become a Patreon or buy me a coffee. So thanks very much to all my current subscribers in that field that help the channel continue to grow in a manner that it has. Enough of the waffle, let's get started. Alright, what we'll do, we'll obviously show you very quickly how I use SketchUp. Now, there is other free CAD programs out there like Tinkercad, and I think Fusion have got, or AutoCAD have got one as well. But that's obviously a bit more complex and a bit more of a steeper learning curve. My understanding, the learning curve is a lot more intense with AutoCAD, but I've only had a very brief play with it, so I'm probably not the best person to talk about. So CAD program has, we start looking in the 360 degrees, or sorry, the 3 dimensions, I suppose. So we've got the X, the Y, and the Z as shown here. So this is what we go into. So I'll give you a very, very quick overview. So we've got our predefined some tools in the left here. If you want to add more, it's just a matter of going with 3 little dots and then working out what you want to do. So this is quite a powerful little program, and I'm only in my infancy in using it as well. Won't go into too much over this other side. This is sort of gets to that sort of next level of functionality, but I'll leave it to the experts out there, and there's plenty of videos out there how to use this program properly. So in short, these little guys are just rectangles that are 1 millimeter in thickness. So where have I got the dimensions from? So the dimensions I'm using, I've got Code 83 Roco HO scale track, and I know from the tie plates to each side of the rails, we're looking at about a width of 12.9 millimeters. Obviously, for I work in the metric world, I will put up on the screen what that is in the imperial world. And now I didn't want any of my locomotives or anything, or any wagons or rolling stock snagging on the bottom, so I've made these very, very tight. So these don't actually sit above the rail head at all, they sit just below, and that is a measurement I've worked out of 1.87 millimeters. As you can see here, I've made a jig, so to speak. So I'll just go through, and then each track that I want to make, because there's 2 different entities here. So there's the text, and I'll just show you. I can edit group, and I can move the text out, and then we've got purely just, this is just looking around on the different axis, is what it actually will look like. So we've got 1 millimeter thick there and 12.87. So obviously the length of these are pretty well as long as you want to make them, depending on how much text you got there. From there, what we do is, as I said, I've made up a slight little jig, and how we do that is we got these measurements, so we just go measurement, and then I know what the center line is, because mine are 60 millimeters in width from point here to point, and then I've gone a little bit less than the 12.9. I've just, to make the math a little bit easier, I've gone 12 mil, which is around 1/2 inch, and then I go half again. So I basically just make an intersection point here where I know it's the middle going up and down and left to right, so to speak. So how do we make these little guys? So you just get the the rectangle tool. Maybe if I can do that. Alright, so as you can see, down in the bottom right corner, so currently the dimensions of that is 57 millimeters wide by 8 millimeters high. Obviously this is just a flat entity at this point in time because we don't have any thickness to this. But what you can end up doing, so if you know how you want to do this, you go, or what your dimensions are, so I can physically type into the keyboard 60, and 12, and you see what happens. That now is exactly the same size as the one below. So from there, we've got some other how we move around the planes or the axes, so to speak. So we've got a pan, so H we use pan, then I'm holding the left mouse button down and you can go from left to right, hold, and then it locks it. And then we can go the orbit key, which is a really, really cool how you can actually start looking at this entity or object in the 3D. So it's 0, left mouse button again, and you can sort of have a look around. So you can see how my new one on the left here, which is just a black line, basically does not have a Z axis to it at all. So how do we do that? So we go over to this little, what they call the push-pull. We come and click on it, and it's just a matter of going up. So you can see how that is currently 8 millimeters. I'm going to go out to 10, 12, so that's half an inch thick, but I don't want that. So what I can just do is go, as we did before, you can do the thickness or the Z axis. We can just go 1, and now that is the same thickness as the other one. So let me go back into orbit tool, and you can see how that now looks. Now we need to add some sort of labeling to it, hence why I'm going about doing this video. So it's just a matter of typing in what you want, and let's go track number 1, and then my track number 1's bi-directional, let's say. So I've got arrows going left and right. So the beauty of these is it's just a very, very ready reckoner, very visual for my operators to see, one, what track it is, because obviously I use what tracks come and going, particularly arrival and departure tracks, and particular tracks have certain things they do, like some of my tracks go off to staging and the like, hence why I wanted to make it as easy as I could. So on the free version, the text is very limited. Now I tried this LoRa one before, and it didn't print out all that nicely. So the Oswald is a nice, thick, bold type text. And then I'm going to go 1 millimeter high and extrusion of 1 millimeter. That's just technical terms that it's all enclosed. Plonk it in the middle. So obviously if we were to do it on this bottom one, you would say, oh, it'd be a lot easier because we've got some guidelines. And then just using the mouse wheel, we use the mouse wheel to do what we need to do. And then we've got what we call the scaling tool. So this is how I make it bigger. So it's just a matter of stretching it, and then you get to a point where you just by eye sort of move it around. But obviously with this one here, you've got all the guidelines and all that, all the measurements. So from then what you need to look at is, we'll go back to our orbiting tool. You can see obviously you scale it scales everything out. So from that I go just have it just a little bit like that, so I can see what the scale is. So give you some sort of idea. And then I go back to the scale tool. So you got to be a bit mindful, because if you want to do a uniform scale with it, you can see how the arrows go. So if I go to that top arrow at the top left there where I am now, it draws a line to the bottom, so it's actually pulling everything with it. So what I find, there's a little one in the middle here with the arrows that go up and down, and then from there it scales everything just in the vertical. And then I just go down to, so that's 1 centimeter, so we can just go down to a few mil or a millimeter, I think, from memory, or not, a bit under a millimeter, and that's the end of it. So what we then look at doing is we go over to, and we download it. Before we go to the Bambu Labs print interface, let's have a quick word from my sponsor, PCBWay.com, who not only do PCBs and electronics like I have been doing of recent times, they do some great 3D printing as well. So here we go. PCBWay offers a variety of services ranging from PCB production and assembly to 3D printing, CNC machining, sheet fabrication and injection molding in a variety of materials. If you do not have the correct tools for the job, you can quickly upload your Gerber file for a PCB and press enter and get a quote in no time at all. This makes PCBWay a good option for your projects. Okay, so over here, what I've got here on the screen here is this is the Bambu Labs printing interface, which is an online app. So this is now going to talk wirelessly to my Bambu Labs PS1 printer, which is in another part of the room here. So I won't go into the ins and outs of it too much because this is a very, very basic sort of tutorial on what I'm doing and how this is printing. But in short, you can actually go into a lot of different settings and all that depending what you're trying to print. So this is something obviously very basic, very thin. Doesn't really matter so much the strength of it, but we can go strength, the quality, the speed of it, and the like. So this is I've got two types of printers. So this one that we'll be looking at today, this is a filament printer. So it melts molten plastic, so to speak, in various layers. They have come enormously a long way, and initially when I first saw them I thought they're absolutely rubbish, but some of the prints that I've got coming out of this thing of recent times, I'm very, very impressed for doing this type of thing anyway. So some of your smaller detail parts in HO might have a little bit more trouble, but I'm still experimenting how far I can go with this. But obviously the other one, if you want to get into it, is the resin style printers with the UV light that cures each layer. Also very, very good. However, what I like about this, the filament over the resin, there's no cleanup. The thing that I hate the most about resin is the stinky resin. And yes, I use some water-based resins, but they are still very, very toxic, and always had glasses, gloves and respirators on because you just don't want to be breathing that stuff in. Alright, so in short, so this is a little bit like you can imagine lychee slicer or something similar for your resin printers, which I used. So from here, we just go wherever your files are. I won't bore you with that. This is a Windows machine. And then it's just a matter of pretty well dragging and dropping your files, what you've got, onto what they call the build plate, effectively. I'll just put 3 in here. And then I'll zoom in. Now you can see the lettering is there, but what I want to now do, let me centralize that, is what I now want to do is make these, so the bulk of it, the base white, most of the height of the text white, but I just want the very top blue, so it obviously gives a nice contrast off. So what we can do there is we select the one we want. We want this one here, height range. Now my Bambu Labs has got what they call an AMS. So an AMS is a filament loader, effectively, which can have up to 4 different coloured spools of filament. So each colour. So on this particular model, all I'm going to do is I've only set up the white and the blue, but I've got a black and a grey. So you could do base white, black, black lettering, and the sky's the limit. And you can use up to 4 of these AMS to get 16 different colours. So if you really wanted to, you could have a different colour for each character if that's what you want to do. So all I got to do from there is we go down height range here, which is just very, very minimal, and it's just a matter of you highlight it and go back to the preview or prepare, and you can see how that has just purely, let me zoom that as best I can, just coloured the very, very top of the lettering there. So you just go through with each one and then you go off from there. So from there, all we do is we go and slice the plate. So that goes through each individual layer, and it tells you roughly how long this is going to take. This is going to cost not even 1 cent, so nearly 1 cent Australian to do it. So obviously when you're loading your Bambu Labs filament, you can tell how much filament it costs per roll, and it just works it all out. So from there you go print plate, and then you go and find your printer, which is mine's currently off. But when I show you the footage of when they're actually printing, which will come up next, we'll show you what that looks like. So that's pretty well all I've got this week. So thanks for watching. Now, like always, I have 3 questions. So the first question being is, have you used something similar to make these little tags or something similar on your model railway to help your operators identify what the tracks are in a yard or an industrial spur and the like? Number 2, if there's anywhere, and if you have used these type of things, how are you doing? Are you making your own out of cardstock? You cutting up styrene? Or you just putting some sort of sign within the tracks like I've done here? Number 3, if there's any glaring errors, please point out my errors, and I'll endeavour to right my wrong in the following videos. Now, not sure whether I'll get another video done by the end of this year, so I wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and have a blessed one all. So a big shout out to all my Patreons and people who have donated to my channel via Buy Me a Coffee. Really is much appreciated. So if you can maybe have a think about that in the holiday season, every little bit counts to assist with me and my journey of bringing this type of content to you. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Make sure you subscribe, click that little bell icon to be notified of upcoming videos, support us on Patreon, like us on Facebook and Instagram at Model Railroad Technique.